Hey guys, Toolman Tim here. Welcome back to the workshop where we create community, find freedom, promote preparedness, and share success. Welcome back to another special edition of the workshop podcast. And you guys know the story at this point, but I needed to go out east, all the way across the continent to be back with some family for a slight emergency kind of situation. And I didn't want to leave you guys without some content. So I thought, well, what can I do? So I thought it would be a good idea, and I didn't want to replay some of my older stuff yet. I haven't been around that long. So I thought, why not do these one take 15 to 20-minute topic episodes? So again, this week, we're going to talk about how entrepreneurship is the key to more freedom. And real quick, before we dive in, again, if you're new and you want to know more about who I am, the easiest and quickest way is to go by toolmantim.co. That's toolmantim.co. You find the monthly newsletter, all my social media links. Add me over there. I'd love for you to. And of course, the shop section. And that is my favorite spot. We got well over 100 products, tools, adhesives, cordless tools, electronic gear, the whole works, stuff that I have used and abused, that has made me money or saved me money in my handyman business. Ton of different Amazon affiliate links over there. Anything you pick up, or even if you just start your shopping over there, any purchase you make will help support the content I create. So thanks, guys. All right. So now that we got the housekeeping out of the way, I figured it was time to deal with entrepreneurship. I'm going to do some longer episodes, maybe even a whole series on entrepreneurship, because to me, my entire life, even when I didn't necessarily know it, or I was too scared shitless to worry about it, I've always wanted to be my own boss. I've had some miserable jobs. And, to be fair, a lot of those jobs were self-imposed because I never knew how to say no, and I would take on too much responsibility, and I would allow it to bother me too much, and I would get too stressed out. But that being said, way back when I was looking at colleges, my first choice was an entrepreneurship course, which seems kind of funny at the point now where, I guess you can go to college to learn how to be an entrepreneur. But to be absolutely honest, I think that the School of Hard Knocks is the most effective way to learn an entrepreneurial skill and to succeed in an entrepreneurial venture for sure. But I got to tell you, I want to say entrepreneurship is the key to more freedom. And I think entrepreneurship and prepping are two sides of the same coin. You can flip them over and they go hand in hand because, of course, we do most of what we do simply because we want more freedom. We want independence. We want to be able to make our own choices. And what better way to do that than to start out as your own boss? And you might say, oh, great. Yeah, that's nice for you, Tim. You're successful. You've been running your handyman business for half a decade now, and you're making great money. Well, I'm making okay money. I'm happy with it. But you know what? It was scary as hell the first couple years. The first year I did it part-time, and even the first year that I left working for the man and started doing my own thing, I had no business doing it that early, but I burnt myself out, had to run away like I'd done in the past. But this time I decided, you know what? We're going to make something work. But I'm just warning you, just because I say entrepreneurship is the key to freedom doesn't mean it's not scary. It doesn't mean it's easy. Doesn't mean it's going to be a cakewalk. But what I can promise you is if you don't do it, you're never going to have a chance at that freedom. And I'm not even guaranteeing you'll succeed because there's a good chance that your first venture will fail, or it will take you longer to find success than you might think possible. But in the end, you're going to find the freedom that you need. So, everybody's like, oh, great, Tim, pie in the sky dreams. What the hell are you even talking about? Well, to be honest, for just about anyone, and this can be man, woman, child, adult, anybody, if you're looking to create a business or an ongoing income through something you create yourself, to me, the two best and easiest areas to look at are consumable products and services. Let's backtrack a little bit. Do you guys remember the movie Gremlins? Do you remember the dad in there? And how he was always trying to invent the latest and greatest gadget. He just had to come up with one invention that was going to change the world. Well, that is good. And if you can solve somebody's problem, great. But the chances of success in that area are so slim. who needs a razor slash toothbrush, or even some of the stuff that Doc Brown from Back to the Future, whatever, some of the stuff that Doc invented, like, those quirky, eccentric inventors, they were always looking for the next big thing. And it was the same with, so many of the people you see on Shark Tank, and they all have this product and they're like, well, if I can sell 4 million of them, I'll be a millionaire. Well, that's cool. And, one of the biggest problems is that when someone buys a razor slash toothbrush, they'll probably never buy another one again. And if they do, they might buy one more as a Christmas present for somebody. But if you sell coffee, for instance, people need coffee every single month, every single morning. Some people do to survive. If you sell produce baskets, people need produce every single week. Simple as that. Services, people need their lawns mowed every single week or every second week, unless you're in the prairies in the wintertime, or they need their sidewalk shoveled, or their gutters cleaned, or their windows cleaned. People need to eat every day. So maybe you want to do a meal delivery service for the elderly, or for people who, at one time when the oil patch was booming out here, my wife and I had kicked around the idea of making meals for the guys in the patch. They had no problem spending $35 on Slim Jims and Rockstar drinks at the gas station. So we figured, hey, if we could put together a homemade meal for like $20, they would probably buy it. And you know what's cool? They need a lunch or a supper or a breakfast every single day. So first off, focus on, consumable products and focus on services, because those have the two lowest barriers to entry. They require almost no upfront capital, and they allow you to start small and do it while you're doing other things. You can build it in your downtime. So if you're looking for something that's not going to stress you out and has a much higher rate of success, then yes, look at consumable products and look at services. Now, the next thing I'm going to say is don't quit your day job. Don't quit it today. Don't even quit it tomorrow, and don't quit it in 6 months. I did my part-time handyman thing for a year, and then I quit working for the man, walked away. Just like that. No notice, just walked away. It was kind of stupid. I burnt myself out. No excuses. Quit making excuses, Tim. So, I should have burnt the candle at both ends for one more year, because by the end of year one of being in a full-time business, my business was self-sufficient. But times were tough. Money was tight. Things were hard for a long time. So, if you're excited about becoming an entrepreneur, good. But the next year or two could be really hairy for you. Like I said, don't quit working for the man today if you can help it. If your life depends on it, well, that might be a different story. But don't quit today. Start building something, whether it's content creation or a handyman business or a lawn care business or babysitting or dog sitting. Or dog sitting's a great one, because you can still do that while you're at work and just go home and check on the animals while you're having lunch or coffee break or whatever it happens to be. But don't quit today. Have a plan, build toward that plan, save your money, get yourself a beautiful nest egg saved up. That's something else. I had an old PE teacher in high school that used to say, do as I say, not as I do, because he was a heavy smoker. And he always said, don't smoke. It's unhealthy for you. And it always stuck with me. But I'm saying the same thing, don't do what I did. Learn from my mistakes. Save yourself some money, get a nest egg set up, and then tell the man to take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more. Now, if you're wondering, well, okay, Tim, I love the idea of a service business or, a consumable products business. That's great. How do I get started? And I like to talk about the spaghetti method. And that's simple. That is, the old, I call it throw it at the wall and see what sticks, right? So when you first start out, and any successful business, any successful content creation, anything like that, once you find your niche, that's where you're really going to make your money. But when you start out, you're going to be in the broad area, absolutely broad area. So if you're looking at, let's say I'm going to use the handyman business because that is something that is near and dear to my heart. And it is something that has morphed in my personal business over the last 5 years immensely. So when I first started, I offered every service under the sun. If somebody wanted it done, I would do it. I had people who got me to detail their vehicles, even though I wasn't very good at that. occasionally looking at, even I would go to people's houses and property sit, like just check on them 2, 3 times a day when they're away for vacation or feed their animals. Just literally anything and anything I could think of, I would advertise and say, hey, I'm doing this. Are you anyone out there interested? And, 8 times out of 10, I might have one person take me up on the offer, or literally 0 people. But the things that I did pick up, things like gutter cleaning, things like garden tilling, things like spring dog poop cleanup, things like lawn aeration, snow removal, and now my biggest one, property management. You got to try a lot of things, but be flexible, because where you start and where you are going to be so different. You may not even realize that you're in the same industry, or you might not even be in the same industry. But again, throw a ton of different ideas at the wall, because when you first start your business, you're going to have nothing but time. So you can just, advertise, take out cheap online Facebook ads, or advertise on Nextdoor. Maybe you like sharpening knives. Well, you can try that. That's a consumable service as well. That's both, knives that wear out, and offering a constant sharpening service, that kind of stuff. So there's really no end to it. But if you want to be successful, you got to try a whole metric shit ton of stuff when you first start. And then here's the key. Okay. And this is going to blow your mind. All right. So the stuff that works, you're going to do that more. And the stuff that doesn't, you're not going to do it anymore. And I know you're like, well, Tim, that is about as simple as it comes, but it's true. If you want to have a successful YouTube channel, you look at the videos that are working on your channel, and for whatever reason, your audience has clicked with those. And so you make more of those. If you keep making videos that nobody watches, you're going to keep having videos that nobody watches. And if you keep offering services that nobody wants, you're going to keep having no customers. But if you focus on the areas that make you the most money for the shortest investment of time and upfront capital, then that is where you're going to succeed. So I'm not kidding when I say what works, do more, and what doesn't, don't do any. And now here's the other fun part. Okay. So there's 2 ways to go with this. You're going to branch out and you're going to go crazy. You're going to do the spaghetti method and see what sticks. But then eventually you're going to kind of come back down and have smaller ideas. You're going to find 2 or 3 that really work. But the problem is once you flick that switch, entrepreneurial ideas are like glazed potato chips. You can never have just one. So then all of a sudden you're going to start having all these ideas like, man, I'm spending a lot of time on say gutter cleaning right now, but I wonder if a mobile garbage can cleaning service would work as well. And then you need to look and say, okay, here we are. They both could work, but which one is going to work better for me? But this could be anything. This could be a seamstress business or an embroidery business, type of stuff my mom did over the years. And again, like you might, you might end up being someone who specializes in leatherwork because you live in a ranch country and there's a ton of guys that need leatherwork fixed up. Or, you might be really good at fixing coveralls. And so you can offer, coverall repair services to the oil patch guys, like that kind of stuff, So there's no end to it. But there's going to come a point when you found your success, and then you're going to think, I've got other good ideas. And then you just need to really think, okay, do I need to spend more time on the ideas I'm working on, or do I need to diversify a bit and say, okay, I'm really happy with the money I'm making on this gutter cleaning. Now I'm going to invest in this area over here. And then you're kind of diversifying, and you're insulating yourself from losing a big portion of your income just like that. That's the same as like with, if all I had was one big property management client and I lost that one property management client, well, then all of a sudden I'm in a lot of hurt. But if I've got property management here, a little more over here, I got snow removal here, I've got odd jobs there, that kind of stuff. My content creation, just have a whole bunch of little outposts of entrepreneurial ventures, and you'll find a little more security there. And so let's go back to, you might say, well, Tim, I'm secure. I have a job. I have a 9 to 5. I have a regular paycheck. And I got to tell you something. There's no more security in working for the man than there is working for yourself. And in some ways, I want to venture to say there's more security being your own boss. Because it's a simple question. If somebody looks at you and says, but I have steady income, I have a steady job. Well, yep. But guess what? If you go into work tomorrow and the CEO is embezzling and your company's under investigation and they're shutting everything down, there's nothing you can do about it. Or if you've got a boss that just hates your guts for no reason, they can make your life miserable and they can choose to fire you for no reason. And how much control do you have over that? None. And how do you find security? By having some control. So guess what? When you're an entrepreneur, no one can fire you. You can do a shitty job and stop getting customers calling you, but you don't ever have to worry about going into work in the morning and having the rug pulled out from under you and all of a sudden losing 100% of your weekly income. If you have one customer that doesn't like your work, you're not going to get them again. You might look at not doing that job again. But if one area of work dries up as an entrepreneur, you can turn around and you can start focusing on yet another area, or you can diversify, or say again, do things seasonally. But if snow removal work dried up for me, I could pivot and start looking for more property management, or I could go back into janitorial, or, I could get more window cleaning contracts. So in my mind, you're going to find more security in being an entrepreneur, even though it may not feel like it. And you might say, well, what about benefits? Well, we're going to talk about that just a little bit for sure. So let's talk about the three. Oh, there's four fingers, Tim. The three freedoms of entrepreneurship. And then we'll wrap her up for this week. But the first one is time freedom. So, we want independence as a prepper, as someone who's into preparedness, as someone who's into freedom. And time freedom to me has been an asset I didn't even realize I didn't have when I was working for someone else. And when I started working for myself, all of a sudden I started feeling guilty because, I got to choose to make my own schedule. And I could say no to work if I wanted to. I wouldn't make as much money this week. Or, I could choose to do these 4 jobs right here that pay me just as much in 1 day's work as I used to make in 5 days' work, working in the system, working for the man. So to me, there's a few things about that. Number one, I get to make my own schedule, which means I can make time for other things. So if I want to go to, say, the kids', sport event or whatever, I have the freedom to do that. And I also have the freedom to work on other projects. So for instance, I had lots of time to work on my cistern prepper pantry here. That's something I would have had a hell of a time finding the extra time to do if I was still working for, a big corporation somewhere. And I'd be wore out and burn out. And, I've also had an immense amount of time to devote to this content creation business that I have had. And this, no doubt, is a business for me. I love it. And I would still do some form of this, even if I wasn't making income from it. But my goal is for this content creation enterprise to make up at least 50% of my income at some point, because there's going to come a point when my body doesn't want to do handyman work anymore, doesn't want to be out in the cold all the time anymore. And I would love to be able to, interact and share and do the content creation. So, being an entrepreneur gives you that time freedom to invest in other projects. And how about money freedom, right? So what is your limitation when you're working for someone else? Well, yeah, you might have a steady paycheck, but your paycheck, let's just say you're bringing home $1,000 a week. Okay. Well, that is basically your limit. Unless you are allowed to work unlimited overtime, which is almost unheard of in this day and age, you're basically limited to $1,000 a week. And if you're really, really, really lucky, you'll end up doing what I used to do at the hardware store. And I'd work my friggin' ass off all year for the boss who would make 100 promises. And at the end of the year, they would say, sorry, times are tough. Here's a 15 cent an hour raise. Barely enough to cover inflation. Now, if you're your own boss, inflation is not an issue, within reason, of course. I actually had to hold off. I never raised my snow removal prices in 4 years, but my insurance in those 4 years has gone from $800 to $5,000 in for 1 year. I've never had a claim, never missed a payment. It's just the nature of snow removal right now. And so I had to put my prices up, or I wasn't making the money that I needed to. And so you have that freedom as an entrepreneur. Hey, if I want to make $100 an hour, then I find a way to be able to do $100 worth of value for a customer in an hour. And that doesn't mean you need to do $100 worth of work. You just need to give them $100 worth of value. Because, for instance, I love using the gutter cleaning thing. You can charge $100 to do an average size 1-story home. It probably takes me about 45 minutes to do, start to finish. So that's over $100 an hour. Now, if the customer called you and said, hey, what do you charge? $100 an hour. Oh, that's too much. Have a nice day. Okay, no problem. But if I can do an entire house, get their gutters cleaned in an hour or a little bit less, and they know that if they did it, it would take them 6 hours on a weekend, and they'd have to spend that entire time white knuckling, holding on to their extension ladder. All of a sudden, you've given them, say, 6 hours at $15 an hour, their wage. You've given them $100 worth of value, plus they've got all that free time. So there is so much more. And then, of course, if you want to make more money, you work harder. You go after more jobs. You find more work. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And there is a ton of money freedom in entrepreneurship. And then, of course, the best one is, autonomy, self-autonomy, decision freedom. To me, this is, you get to choose what you do, where you go, how you do it, who you work for, who you don't work for, what you don't do, where you don't go. And, if there are moral choices that you're facing in your workplace right now, and you have to sit there and think, I don't know if I want to do that, but I have to do it because I have to support my family. Well, you know what? As an entrepreneur, you don't have to worry about that. You're working somewhat outside of the system, especially if you're doing, service work or consumable delivery, that kind of stuff. So you get to make your own choices for you, 100% individual autonomy. And that is what I love more than anything about being an entrepreneur. So, I hope that helps, guys. Entrepreneurship, and I don't want to end on a downer, but entrepreneurship might not be for absolutely every single person, but some form of entrepreneurship is definitely for more than 95% of society, of the population, of the world. Entrepreneurship is the way to find freedom. And it might seem scary at first, but when you start getting into it, you start building something, all of a sudden you can look back and you can be so proud. You're like, look, that's my baby. That's what I built. I now have the time to do what I want, the money to do what I want, and the individual autonomy to make my own choices. So, guys, I hope this helps. This is something that I've dealt with and I struggled with for a lot of years. And I always say, the second best time to do something is now, because, of course, the first best time was way back whenever you should have. But I always wanted to have my own business. And here I am. I have my own business. Was it scary? Yep. Was it worth it? Friggin' right it was. So I hope that inspires you. Leave comments, guys. Respond to me on social media. I love to hear back from you. I always appreciate it. And if you want to hear more of the Workshop podcast, either hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel here, or if you're listening to this in audio, add me, follow me in whatever your favorite podcatcher format is. And you can also hear me on the Prepper Broadcast Network, where my Thursday Preparedness series is always simulcast over there. So anyway, guys, as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.